Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and today we're going to be learning about the New Edge 1999 through 2004 Ford Mustang. And although this is commonly known as the New Edge, it is still the SN95. The year 1999 marked the 35th anniversary for the Ford Mustang. With it came a brand new style that would soon be known as the New Edge style, and that was company-wide, not only on the Ford Mustang. Now, in the past, Ford did not do a lot for anniversaries for the Mustang, but 1999 was different, and for starters, every Mustang, except for the Svt Cobra, would come with this 35th anniversary badge on the side fenders. They also had some 35th anniversary models, which we'll get into in a minute. So Ford's vice president of design from 1980 to 1997 was Jack Telnack. Now, even though he was done in 1997, his whole idea came to life as the New Edge era, and this was not only on the Ford Mustang, but other Fords at that time. This combined intersecting arcs and other features, creating a surface tension by adding creases to soft aerodynamic shapes, by definition. And so these body panels were actually easier to align, so it sped up production as well. This was something new at the time, and the outgoing Mustangs were starting to be called jelly beans based on their round shape. And so you can see the New Edge shape was definitely a lot more crisp. So here's a few pictures just kind of showing that the older body style that Ford had been using was very round. It started to be squared off quite a bit, started to be edged off, which is kind of how it got its name of the New Edge. And all across the board, even the F-150 has gone from this rounder looking front end and body to a more chiseled and squared off look. So that was just the New Edge body style that the whole company was taking. So for 1999 and 2000, the Mustang had clear headlights and a very sleek hood. You'll see in a few minutes on the anniversary models that Ford intended to have this car even beefed up a little more as far as the New Edge design goes. It would have a better hood scoop, better side scoops, and to come out the car, they kind of left it a little bit, a little plain so they could add on to it. The side scoops were more kind of side scoop areas rather than big scoops. The rear wing was pretty sleek as well, and for the V6 you had a bumper without any kind of cutouts on it, so it was kind of a very smooth looking rear bumper. Yes, I did find a pre-production bumper here showing the V6 with one cutout over the passenger side, which is pretty funny. But this is what the GT bumper really ended up looking like. It had a cutout over each exhaust tip. So Mustang V6 still had one single pipe, the GT got the dual exhaust with the cutouts. Very good looking rear bumper. So for the most part, the interior with the twin cowl design stayed pretty much the same. The colors did change to be a little more lighter than they used to be, and the clock that was up on the dashboard actually went away in 1998, the last year of the previous body style, and so that continued in this one with the tape cassette up top and a CD player below. But more than anything, the colors just remained more of a neutral, kind of lighter color that was a little more inviting, and small changes with cup holders in the center console and that kind of thing. The V6 Mustang still haunted you with only 120 mile an hour gauges. However, the red line was a little higher than 5,000 now. The GT had the 150 mile an hour gauges, which is real nice, and still kind of smaller letters. Hard to read. The Cobra went up to 160 with the white face gauges, which is their trend and was really cool. And Ford was still using the tealish green kind of color for the backlighting, all these, and you could tell the trip meter and odometer had gone digital, and so that was a nice touch coming into the new century. Transmission options were pretty much the same. The 5-speed manual was offered in the V6, the GT, and the Cobra, and the automatic was only offered in the V6 or the GT. No automatic option for the Cobra. Horsepower ratings were up across all models, but there's a reason I say ratings and not actual horsepower, which we'll get to in a minute. As for the V6 Mustang, it carried over the 3.8-liter V6 with the overhead valve, and it gained 40 horsepower, now producing 190 horsepower, and still the 215 pound-feet of torque as the previous one. A lot of the gain for the V6 Mustang's horsepower was attributed to the split port intake manifold that you can see here in the picture. The GT retained the single overhead cam 4.6-liter V8, now making 45 horsepower more. So instead of 215 horsepower, it was up to 260 horsepower and 302 pound-feet of torque. And although the engines looked very similar, they were quite different, especially in the cylinder heads. Ford now had what they called the PI, or Performance Improved heads. On the left, you can see the small intake ports from the NPI heads, and on the right, the newer, more squared off PI heads, or Performance Improved cylinder heads. The PI intake manifold was also thicker, as you can see on the right hand side, compared to the NPI intake manifold on the left. So the 96 to 98 would be known as the NPI for non-performance improved, and the 99 to 04 would now be called the PI heads, or Performance Improved heads. The intake manifold was also a lot thicker. Now we're on the left-hand side with the PI intake manifold, which was a much taller, bigger runner intake manifold. And unfortunately, these were very prone to cracking and leaking coolant everywhere. The 99 Cobra's dual overhead cam 4.6-liter V8 was now rated at 320 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque, which was a significant gain over the last body style. But it didn't take long for companies like Car and Driver magazine to find out that the car was underperforming. In fact, Ford themselves admitted losses as much as 54 horsepower. So Ford agreed that it would come up with a fix for all these issues. And so pretty soon they were recalling all of the Cobras for 1999 and giving the cars a different intake manifold and different exhaust, as well as an updated tune. So Ford would replace or port the existing intake manifold on all of the current Cobras that were sold, and also change out the mufflers to be a little higher flowing in order to make this up. They also gave the car an updated tune, and apparently people were satisfied that the car now made the proper rated horsepower. It was really a shame that Ford was having so many problems with the Svt Cobra and its new body style. The car otherwise looked great. The Cobra had a really nice new front bumper with a nice arch in the front of it, aggressive round fog lights as always. This electric green was a great color, and one of my favorites are the amber taillights, which they took from the export Mustangs with that orange in them. Similar to 1994, the 99 Mustang Cobra only said Mustang in the rear bumper, and that would soon change in the year 2001. The wheels looked really good as well, nice updated 17-inch wheels, similar Cobra brakes to the old one. For 1999, the Svt Cobra got a brand new independent rear suspension, or IRS. This was about 1.2 inches wider. It weighed 80 pounds more, but they claimed that it would provide a 125-pound reduction in unspring weight. So this was supposed to help the car around the track, as Mustangs had always had the reputation of being straight-line cars only. And in the beginning, it was a 28 spline setup, and that would soon grow to be a 31 spline for the year 2001 and onward, which we'll get into later. And now, due to all these problems they had in 1999, Ford would actually cancel the Svt Cobra for the year 2000 and only put out the Cobra R. Now getting back into some of the styling, the V6 still had 3-spoke wheels that were now spread out a little bit more between the spokes. The GT had some really nice looking wheels. I really like these 5-spoke wheels that it came with, 17-inch opposed to the V6's 15-inch. So the V6 still had this 7.5-inch open-end differential, meaning you only got power to one wheel, the passenger side wheel, and that left you having some pretty embarrassing burnouts that would only leave the one trail all the way down. And then the GT and the Cobra still had the 8.8-inch traction lock rear end, and so it wasn't a locker, but it would at least somewhat lock both wheels into place when in a straight line, so that you could get those nice dual burnout marks going, and that really was easy to do in these cars. And as a nice upgrade, all the models went up from that horrid 2.73 in the V6 to the 3.27 gear end ratio. And later on, the Cobra would eventually get the 3.55s as well as the Mach 1. But as you may recall in the previous body style, the 94 to 98, you were stuck with pretty much 2.73s as a really long gear, and you got 308s as an option for the manual and 327s as a option for the automatic trans. And so now all cars had the 327s in them. In 1999, Ford did do an anniversary package. Now, a lot of people think that theirs is an anniversary package just because on the side fenders they see the badge that says 35th anniversary. But this was an actual anniversary package. It consisted of only Mustang GTs. There were a total 4,628 made. 2,318 of these are coupes. 2,310 are convertibles, and they only came in 4 colors. 1,555 were performance red, which was the only way that you could get performance red in 1999. The other red was similar, it was called Rio Red, but this was a special color only for the 35th anniversary. 1,299 were black. 1,259 were silver, and only 515 were made in crystal white. The 35th anniversary package included quite a few upgrades. This included the hood scoop, the different rocker panels going down the sides, different side scoops, and a lifted rear wing. The 35th anniversary package also included a very nice darked out area that went from the front of the hood scoop down to the front of the hood. Very nice aluminum 5-spoke wheels also were part of the package. Now these were similar to the traditional wheels that came on the GT that year, but they did have a blacked out center as well, and they were somewhat polished. You'll also notice the very nice blackout panel between the rear tail lights. The 35th anniversary package also included very nice black leather and vinyl seats with silver inserts. These seats, as well as many of the other ones from 1999 up, would have the Mustang running horse embroidered on them. You could also get the chrome ball shifter if you had the 5-speed manual car, and if you looked at the door panels themselves, they were also colored in silver on the rear part. The instrument cluster bezel was also very nice in silver and included the lettering 35th anniversary. And you can't forget floor mats on a special edition car, as it came with a very nice set, which included the 35th anniversary logo. For the year 2000, as Ford continued to sort out the horsepower problems of the regular SVT Cobra, no SVT Cobras were offered, except for the 2000 Cobra R. Now this was a fully race-inspired, track-inspired car, with only 300 being made. All 300 Cobra Rs were painted in performance red. Had many things that you can see just by looking at it, especially that rear big wing, the front splitter, the front hood. This whole car was designed to be menacing and a complete track monster. As for the rear end design of the car, that wing basically got all your attention. Other than that, you got the export tail lights, which were a nice touch, and the rear bumper was straight off of a V6. It just said Mustang in it, and as you could see, no cutouts for the exhaust, as the Cobra R had boreless side exit exhaust. You did get at least the SVT lettering there on the rear deck lid. Very large 18 by 9.5 inch Cobra rims were wrapped in BF Goodrich sport tires that were specifically designed for the car. 4-piston Brembo brakes were up front with 13-inch discs and 11.65-inch discs in the rear. If you look closely, you could also see ventilation tubes that were coming basically from the front of the car to cool down the brakes. And so these openings were basically where the fog lights were on each side of the front of the car. Very special headers along with Borla side exit exhausts helped you hear this car loud and clear. Bilstein shocks as well as Eibach lowering springs helped the Cobra sit 1.5 inches lower in the front and 1 inch lower in the rear. Similar to the 99 Cobra, the 2000 Cobra R also benefited from an independent rear suspension, now with 31 spline half shafts and a Gero-disc differential. The Cobra R featured a very powerful, naturally aspirated 5.4-liter dual overhead cam V8, which had a forged steel crank, billet rods, forged flat top pistons, which gave it a 9.6 to 1 compression ratio and produced 385 horsepower and 385 pound-feet of torque. Rumor has it that this was also the most expensive intake manifold that Ford had ever produced. Now, the interior of the Cobra R was pretty basic. Of course, it was a race car, so it didn't have a lot of the creature comforts. In fact, you'll notice that it didn't have the cruise control buttons, no cruise control system, and if you look over as well, it did not have air conditioning, so it was actually kind of cool. If you look at the knobs up close here, it does show that there is no option for air conditioning. You just have vent, floor, and a mixture of the two. No radio, anything like that in the middle, and the good thing was you did get the T56 6-speed transmission, so it was kind of cool to see a shift knob similar to the one of the Mustang GT, but it did have the 6th gear option. A nice set of Recaro racing seats was also given to you. There was no rear seat. It had a rear seat delete kit. But you could count yourself lucky that you did get power windows. And all around, it was a race car. It was not intended for driving much on the street. And you could see with that big front splitter, that could catch curbs or bumpers or all kinds of things in the road. So a lot of people didn't even install that if they're having this as a collector item. So John Coletti had dubbed this car the fastest, the best handling Mustang ever at the time, and he was the Ford Special Vehicle Team engineer manager, and they later tested the car to find out it would run a 12.58 second quarter mile at 110.85 miles per hour. So very fast car, 385 horsepower, 385 pound-feet of torque. At that time was a significant standard. And so it was no wonder that this car was so spectacular. Now, a lot of these cars, unfortunately, have just been packaged away, not driven, used as a collector item. And in one way, it's nice to preserve them that way. And on the other, of course, the cars were meant to be driven. So anyway, this is going to complete this first portion of the 99 through 04 body style. And stay tuned and subscribe to the channel if you have not, and we'll get the other section out as soon as I can. Thanks for watching.